We'll see. All right, so welcome everybody. We are gonna just go ahead with this lunch and learn, and some people will be coming in as they can. We're really happy today to have Maressa Valiant from Eat Local First. She directs that project and works at Sustainable Connections in Whatcom County. Thanks, Maressa, for being here and for your patience with getting this lunch and learn going. I'm Marty Solomon, and I, along with Emily Mankey, just help coordinate these lunch and learn sessions for the Western Washington Food Systems Partnership Project under NABC. Maressa, let's just turn it over to you to get started on the Eat Local First, telling us all about that. And there'll be plenty of time for Q&A. So save up your questions, or you can put them in the chat, and at any time, just put them in the chat, and Maressa, we will go through them and try to answer them as we go here. So Maressa, you want to?
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Marty and Emily, and grateful for this opportunity to connect with all of you. So I'm curious, for those who are here, if you are familiar, like what level of familiarity you have with Eat Local First and the Washington Food and Farm Finder. We're going to, I'm going to give a little overview, but if there are specific things that you're curious about, please do pop those into the chat. I would love to be able to respond more directly to the interest that you have in our work, because we do a lot of things. As Marty said, my name is Maressa. I work out of Bellingham at Sustainable Connections. I've been here for 6 years. My first project was with Marty. Actually, we worked together on Whatcom Farm to School, and simultaneously I was working to build the Northwest Washington Food Atlas, is what we called it at the time, and it was an online directory of local farms and food businesses, and it was meant to be more for business support services. So anything that those businesses would need in terms of marketing support or access to land, capital. But we ended up realizing that there was a big need for consumer-facing online tools for people to find information about local food and farms. And then over the course of the pandemic, there was so much interest in local food, and there was, frankly, fear. There was scarcity, and people were confused about how to access food, and farmers were wondering how they were going to move food. And so we came together with 5 other organizations across the state, some of those who either had a directory of their own or some that were considering beginning a new directory. And we said, let's pool our resources, let's avoid duplicating effort here, and let's create one resource where people can go to find local food and support local farms and food producers in help make connections between consumers and also more wholesale buyers across the board. So that's when the Washington Food and Farm Finder was born in 2021, not 2000. And so before I get into a whole bunch of other details about that, I just want to take a moment to share a bit about the why of what we do and ground us in some connection. We just recently put together a beautiful short video that I think really speaks to what we're doing and what we hope to accomplish, and have been sharing this video out. So I'm going to go ahead and share that. Make sure I'm sharing sound. That showing? Black screen? Okay.
I found my farmer. She cares for her soil, tends to her sprouts. She knows when to dig, when to pick, and when to be patient. She watches the sky and loves the land so it can love us back. When I buy local, it's about more than food. It's a relationship between my farmer and my family. She connects us to this place, the seasons, the land, and the best it can provide. I found my farmer.
YouTube makes me a little crazy sometimes. Sorry about that. So that was Savannah Flynn of Flynn Farms up in Everson, Washington. And the customer featured in that video is her first CSA customer and her daughter. It's a beautiful relationship that we wanted to illustrate for folks about why local. There's a lot of different reasons why people prioritize local food. Some of it is because of perceived climate impacts. Some of it is because they just think it tastes better. But really what it comes down to, what we really want to impart is the relationships that build strength into our local communities and our local food system. And so that video is on YouTube and all of our social channels. And part of our marketing campaign to reach consumers and connect them to the Washington Food and Farm Finder so that they can find farmers, they can find farmers markets, they can find restaurants and other businesses that are sourcing from local producers. So that's our overarching goal. I'm going to go ahead and share some slides here. I would be curious if you wouldn't mind dropping into the chat what your role is, and perhaps a brief comment about what your interest is in Eat Local First or the Washington Food and Farm Finder. And okay. Is that okay? There we go. Thanks for your patience. So real briefly, I mentioned already the different organizations that comprise the Eat Local First Collaborative are Pierce County Fresh, Seattle Good Business Network, Sustainable Connections, Health Alliance, the Local Food Trust, WSU Food Systems, and WSU Regional Small Farms Program from Clallam, Jefferson, and Kitsap counties. So these partners have been working with us since the beginning of the pandemic to build out the Washington Food and Farm Finder. As I mentioned, we merged some directories. If you have been in food systems work for a long time, you might be familiar with WSU's previous Farm Finder. I think it was the original kind of database for finding local farms. So we merged that data over to the Washington Food and Farm Finder and have a close relationship with WSU, and many of their staff have been a part of continuing to build and maintain that data and information. And I will say also to those that are in this room, we are looking to expand the membership of the collaborative throughout the fall. We will be launching some campaigns to both invite new members to the steering committee, and we're also going to be looking for regional partners around the state, both to take on some funded specialist positions to do outreach in different regions of the state, but also to build out regional identities across the state. So if that tickles your ears at all, please let me know. I would love to connect with you about that in the future. So what is our main goal? Again, we want to make it easy for people to find and buy local food, and also tell them about all of the different reasons that it matters and the relationships behind those that grow and prepare and serve food. Why does this matter? I know that this information might not be new to most people, but during COVID, University of Washington conducted some research, and the biggest impact to local food producers was market channel closures and shifts, right? There were farms that, maybe especially we noticed in the seafood industry that depended on restaurants as their main market channel, and with those being shut down, had to find new ways of moving their product. And so our goal was to build a tool that would assist people in being able to expand market opportunities. So a lot of differences we've seen in the past couple of years are people diversifying and perhaps starting a CSA, starting wholesale channels, selling to schools, selling to institutions, selling to hunger relief organizations. And those are all things that we are collecting within the data set for the Washington Food and Farm Finder to be able to express to customers. So again, how are we making this easy? It's through one statewide resource with an interactive map and a unified brand. Branding makes it easy for people to identify what is truly local and what is grown and produced here. And I will say, I'm sure most of you are aware that Washington State doesn't currently have a brand for our products, an official brand. So there is research being done at the recommendation of the Food Policy Council over the course of the next year to dig into what is needed in terms of a state brand. And we will be working with them to make sure that we are part of that process. And we're really happy to already have a great relationship with WSDA and worked with them in Washington Farm to School to build out several other tools. So we will be part of that process and learning what the needs are for the state. But the Eat Local First is currently, it is an in-house statewide brand for locals here. It doesn't really apply itself to exported products at this time. So we're hoping to work with WSDA and be able to continue the branding, but we'll see what happens in the next couple of years. Mainly, we're focused on the Washington Food and Farm Finder, and currently it has over 2,034 locations, 1,200 of which are farms across 38 counties. Just one county doesn't have any listings in it currently. And I want to stress that these are free listings. There's no charge for farms or food businesses or local resources to be listed in this resource. And that is through generous funding made possible by the Washington State Legislature. We received a proviso last year, and then a renewed proviso for years 2023 and 2024. So we're very grateful to the legislature for that. And I also want to share some of our other goals for this tool, as you noticed, maybe that our partners are heavily located on the west side of the state. And so we've really tried to prioritize expansion and representation, both geographically and demographically, across the state. And over the course of the past year, we've been able to do that. We've increased listings on the east side by 20%, in central Washington by 15%, and that will continue to be our goal. And as I mentioned earlier, we are looking for folks who would like to work with us as outreach specialists, kind of be the boots on the ground in some of these regions to continue to diversify the Washington Food and Farm Finder. I also want to point out that the site is available in multiple languages, and this is particularly helpful for when folks are filling out their listing and creating it. So there are a number of languages, and I'll also just mention that if there's one missing, we're happy to add one. So please do let us know if that is something that you see as there's a gap. One of the other things that makes this resource unique is that it incorporates sustainability and diversity indicators. So we know that the fastest growing segment of local purchasers is going to be millennials. It is millennials. And that group is very focused on buying according to their values. And so we want to make it easy for people to filter listings according to those values. If buying organic is important to you, we can help with that search and make it clear who is producing certified organic products. If people want to support veteran-owned businesses, they can filter by any of these indicators. And I also want to mention that in our next round of updates, we'll be adding halal and kosher. We're currently collecting data on that, and we'll be expressing that within probably the next 3 months. So back to the branding and marketing is so important. And in pretty much every survey that I've ever seen of challenges for farmers and what their needs are, marketing support, especially for small to medium scale producers, is always a huge need. And so much of our work focuses on marketing, creating more visibility for farms in our state. And fishers, I should say, we do a lot of work to try and make sure we're highlighting our seafood options. So eatlocalfirst.org is the domain of the site. It received over 250,000 unique page views in the last 12 months with over 113,000 users. We run campaigns throughout the year. In the past couple of years, we've run a holiday campaign and CSA campaigns, which have reached over 2 million people. And our social media platforms at the peak of those campaigns have a combined reach of 300,000. We do also have a monthly newsletter that goes out to consumers, which our list is currently 3,000 subscribers. And with each campaign we run, we see that number increase exponentially. We're currently running a summer giveaway. You can check it out. It's eatlocalfirst.org/win. And there's some fun ways for people to engage with things that are going on around the state. One of which is happening for the first time in King County, thanks to a grant from King County Conservation District. That is directly to Tilth Alliance, and they have launched an Eat Local Month campaign for the month of August. So that kicks off on August 1st, and we're excited about that and supporting all of those efforts. There are also Eat Local Month campaigns and activities taking place on Whidbey Island, on the Olympic Peninsula, and up in Northwest Washington. Farm tours, restaurant specials, all kinds of fun things and ways for people to engage with local food. It's really a great time to be able to encourage people to get out and go pick and enjoy the bounty of the season. We already talked about this a little bit, but listings are free for folks. And I also want to mention we have a how-tos page on the site that has tutorials for people, video tutorials, and we also offer one-on-one technical assistance. We can set up a 15-minute or 30-minute call with someone who'd like to help optimizing their listing and making sure that they're getting the most out of it. So we're happy to set up one-on-one consultations for that, and the links for that are on that page, localfirst.org/listing how-tos. Listing is easy from the drop down at the top. Just click on the Get Listed button. All you need is a username, phone number, email address, and password to set up an account, and then to create listings. What's next for us is some website optimization. So we're currently in a big development project, really working to make sure that the site works well on mobile devices. Over 50% of our users are utilizing the resources on a mobile device, and so we're trying to prioritize that and making sure that it's fast and that it meets, industry standards and people's expectations. Over the course of the next 6 months, we plan to launch some regional identities, and what I mean by that is Eat Local First as a statewide brand is kind of an umbrella for all of these tools, but we have so many wonderful relationships with hyper-local brands and initiatives like Genuine Skagit Valley or Pierce County Fresh, and people who've put a lot of work into those more hyper-local branding efforts that really matter to people, and place really matters. And it's a really big state, right? And we produce a lot of different things. And so our next step is going to be building out regions that really showcase what is unique to each region. What does a region produce really well? People think of lavender when you think of the Olympic Peninsula, but there's a whole bunch of other things that they produce. And we want to both highlight the things that are well known and also draw out some of the hidden gems and really tell the stories of what makes the different regions of the state unique. So in the fall, we will be hosting a series of regional roundtables via Zoom, where we'll be inviting folks from different clusters of counties to come and be a part of helping to build out that identity. And who we're looking for to do that are going to be, of course, folks in food systems, but also economic development professionals, tourism, and destination development entities. So anybody who's invested in supporting local food at the regional level. And there will be a lot of cool opportunities to highlight those other groups and brands that are part of those regions as well. Like I mentioned earlier, we want to continue to grow the tool and make sure that it is representative of all of the farms and the people that are in the state growing and producing food, as well as different sectors. So happy to have brought on our awesome partner at Seattle Good Business Network to really launch outreach to the restaurant industry. They do so much great work with restaurants and Seattle Restaurant Week, and also a lot of manufactured food products. And so we want to expand the tool to be able to highlight more of the circular economy, people who are sourcing from each other and feeding money back into our state economy. We want to continue to launch campaigns. Like I mentioned earlier, we've run the holiday and the CSA campaigns, and during the summer months, lots of agritourism and supporting Eat Local Month this year. We would love to maybe have a statewide Eat Local Month campaign. It'd be really cool to see the governor declare Eat Local Month in Washington State at some point. That's like a pie in the sky vision. And also to grow the wholesale tool. So I haven't talked a whole lot about that. And I might just go to the website itself to show you that. But we do have a section of the site that is specifically built out for, I'm going to stop sharing for a second, actually, because I think it would be better.
So honest, journey, spiritually, she's such an activist, she had a strong social. Not great.
Marty, do you have good questions coming for me?
We do have a couple questions. And I'm just going to ask one of them. You had mentioned these meetings to develop regional identities coming up in the fall. And I'm just wondering what's the best way for people to be informed of those meetings? Because I think we have some good participants, future participants on this Lunch and Learn.
Definitely. If you are interested, please pop your email into the chat and I will add it to our outreach list when we do announce the dates of those regional roundtables. We will have them, like I mentioned, for each region of the state, and then we'll have probably one or two catch-all for folks that are either working at the statewide level or can't make it to one of the regional ones. So this is the wholesale finder. You'll find it under this menu, find a wholesale vendor. And this was built in partnership with WSDA, particularly to support the huge amount of funding that has been coming through for local procurement for schools and both schools and food assistance programs. And so this is a beta wholesale finder tool. This is the first version, and we are in the process of doing some stakeholder research, conducting some focus groups and interviews with people to find out, what else would they want to see from this type of a tool. So we want to make it easy for school food service teams to be able to find local product and utilize the funding that's coming through both at the national and the state level to procure locally produced goods. And also, we do a lot of outreach to buyers, both from like the local small business level, local restaurants, up to institutions. In Northwest Washington, we host the Farm to Table Trade Meeting every February, where we bring together buyers and producers. And this is a tool that we share with them and train them on. This past year was the inaugural Good Food Connections event that took place in Seattle, if you're familiar with that. And as part of our partnership with Seattle Good Business Network, again, we're promoting this tool and helping people understand how to search for different products. And with this particular resource, they can search also by certifications. So for schools, it's important to know if the product is GAP certified or if it's organic, and if it's available through distribution. So that's the goal of this tool. And I also, if you're interested in learning more about the wholesale tool and also offering feedback to make it better, please also drop a note in the chat, or you can send me an email. I would love to connect with you about that. Another element to the site is our stories, which is essentially a blog, but we like the word stories better because really we are telling the stories of our food system. And if you have ideas or things that you would like to be featured here, please, again, reach out there. There are also a couple other elements. Our events page is free for any food centric organization or business to post. We've got over 200 events posted right now, and there will be some upgrades made to this to make it easier to filter by location and type of event. And I know I mentioned Eat Local Month earlier, but please do check it out. And if you know of other events that are happening in the next few months, this is a great time to add them to that events page because we are doing so much promotion, and would love to call out things that are happening in other areas of the state as well. With that, I would love to take some questions.
Marissa, I just want to tell you a few things that have popped up in the chat. One is that when you were asking about other languages that might be good for translating the site to, Russian, Ukrainian, and Swahili were all mentioned. There's also been a little exchange on the chat about affordable Washington caught marine food proteins and how to get those from local fisheries to food banks. And then David from Harvest Against Hunger said he was interested in that. And we also had a note from Mariah saying that the wholesale finder that you were just showing provides producers an opportunity to say they'd like to sell to hunger relief. And so that's good for everybody to know. Is there anything else you would like to add about any of that, about affordable foods, selling affordable foods, the host to food banks, hunger relief organizations?
Sure. I'll first say that we did actually just recently add Russian to the languages. I don't think it was showing in the screenshot that I shared earlier. I think we also added Hindi and Punjabi, but I appreciate those suggestions. That's really helpful. In terms of affordable seafood proteins, know that I feel like the best place that we can, push a lever in this direction is to tell some stories of successes. I know of in East Whatcom County, the Twin Sisters markets are really working on bringing seafood to their offerings, and those markets are all taking place. I think there's 3 or 4 are all taking place in what are considered to be food deserts, and price consciousness is a huge priority, and providing those options through SNAP and EBT is really important. So I don't have much of an answer as to how we can do that, but I can say that as part of our listing data, we do have businesses identify if they are accepting SNAP and EBT for their products, as well as markets if they're accepting SNAP and EBT and other food and nutrition programs like FreshBucks. And that whenever we do run a campaign, we will share out information to give people links that they can search directly for businesses that are accepting those benefits. But definitely open to other suggestions and ways that we might be able to contribute to more access to affordable seafood proteins.
Anybody else want to add any comments about that? If so, jump in or use the chat, but feel free to just speak up. We're not a big group. Okay, Mariah's just kind of having a little dialogue with Johnny about that. And one thing I do love about these lunch and learns is the networking that happens kind of through the chat and through these discussions. So we've got a few connections happening today.
Hey, I'm so glad you were here, Mariah. I was going to ask someone from our team to show up because it's always nice to have somebody who can respond in the chat when I'm not able to look at it.
And are there other questions? Anybody who wanted to ask something at this point?
I have a question about the building the regional identities. If no one else, I'm with NABC, so if somebody else has a question,
Yeah,
you get precedence. But if no one else does, So Maxime and I are working on a project in Lewis County to sort of the very beginning stages of doing something like that, like building a regional identity for Lewis County. And I'm just wondering like what opportunities we have for partnership in Southwest Washington and in general, and like if you're part of one of those kind of burgeoning, we're established, but burgeoning in terms of establishing your regional brand or identity, what are like the next steps to reach out and kind of get involved with eLocal First?
Yeah, I would say just reach out to me and I would love to set up an initial conversation and learn what the needs are of that group. One thing that we know is that it's very different. You know, people are at different places in their brand development or the needs of the region. And so talking about what those needs are and where our services and resources overlap. But we did recently kind of pilot a regional outreach specialist position within Southwest Washington. And we brought on 2 contractors that worked with us for a short time to do outreach. Like I said, directly on the ground. They already have the relationships and are so well networked. And so giving them resources to be able to support their region and then vice versa, you know, making this tool more robust and comprehensive. We've provided collateral. We sent over 3 tents and tablecloths and a whole bunch of other collateral to the Olympic Peninsula for them to use during the summer, during farm tours. We have a bunch of fun swag that we've made available as well. And really, there's so many opportunities. I do have some concepts of the actual like web content that we're considering, and you know that we can share with folks who are interested and what the opportunities are there. Membership organizations too, I'll say we've talked with Washington State of Veterans Affairs, Vets on the Farm, if those of you are familiar with them. And we're looking at working with them because they were thinking about building out a map to show veteran farmers. And then they were like, oh gosh, you already have this and it's such a great tool. Let's talk about how we can just link to what you're doing. And so we can work with our developer and implement connectivity between websites if there's a desire to highlight a certain group. And we've also done that geographically. So for Island Grown and the San Juans, they came to us also at the beginning of the pandemic and said, we have some money, we want to make a map, but also we know that it's very costly and maintaining it is going to take a lot. Can we just point to your data on the islands? And so that's what we did. We worked with our developer, we created some custom links. And so from their website, you know, it says, do you want to search local farms on Lopez Island? And it takes you directly to the map, just showing listings on those particular islands. So really interested in being able to offer those types of resources and support because it takes a lot to maintain. And we've seen several initiatives kind of fizzle out. You know, you get funding for a 2 or 3 year project and then that funding runs out and then unfortunately the resource disappears. So we can do a lot more together and leveraging resources. We're funded through some USDA funding on the wholesale project that I mentioned earlier. We also have currently 2 years of funding through the legislature. I want to call out Pierce County has been an incredible partner and champion of this work and funding through a county proviso work done by Pierce County Fresh in collaboration with Eat Local First. And we're looking for relationships with, you know, city or county programs that want to support a local food initiative, but, you know, can only maybe afford to put a couple $1,000s into it, can't afford a $30,000 program. So if that sounds interesting, or you know someone who is interested in doing that type of collaboration, please do send them our way too.
Maressa, can you say a little bit more about how regions are going to be defined for the fall visioning sessions?
Sure. So we have some concepts. And I know that this is they have strong opinions about regions and defining them. And so I'm hesitant to kind of put it out there and say, here's what we've decided the regions are going to be. That's really what the goal of these regional roundtables will be. It will be to get folks at the table from the regions that we're conceiving and say, what do you think? Does this make sense to identify this region in this way? And if not, what are the sticking points? And so it's not set in stone. We want people to be a part of that development. And I would love to have conversations with folks who have a vested interest in what those regions would be. I can say that we started our first draft based on the state of Washington tourism's regions that they had identified. If you're familiar with their site, they have like interesting names. It's, I think, like volcano region, and like there's a wine region, which makes sense for tourism. Ours are going to be geographical in their in the naming of them, but nothing is completely set in stone. So we're really interested in feedback there, as well as tribal representation. For the way that our maps are built, county lines are the easiest way for us to divide things, but we know that that doesn't work in terms of representing which tribes are parts of different communities. So it's really important that we have some tribal input as we develop those regions as well.
Are there other questions people would like to ask? Please speak up or put your questions in the chat.
I wanted to share one other thing while people are thinking. I'm sorry. We also have twist ties available, and if you know of farms or even markets that might be interested, we are happy to provide branded twist ties. We've received feedback from, particularly on the peninsula. There's a few different types of twist ties that are available that say like organically grown, but there are farms that might be using organic practices but are not certified, and they want a way to identify that their product is local. And this is just a fun little graphic here. During our CSA campaign, we had 42 farms in 28 cities that participated, and we sent out 55 bundles of these twist ties to them afterwards as kind of a thank you for participating. So this is my coworker Jess. She's awesome. She's behind the scenes reviewing listings that come in on the daily basis, and also helping troubleshoot and doing one-on-one technical assistance consultations with folks. So she's awesome. But just wanted people to know that that's a resource as well.
I will share that with the cooperatives I work with. We'll have to get in touch, because that's like, I'm a farmer, and I know that kind of little things help a lot, especially if they're small.
We have a really sweet feature on it too, on the stories section of the website called "The Ties That Bundle." Just saying.
I'll check it out. Yeah, I'll like include that in the newsletter and stuff. That's super good to know. I love that.
Yeah, thanks, Emily.
That is just great. All right, any last questions here? Seeing none, hearing none. I just want to say a couple of things in wrap up. But first, of course, thank you, Maressa, for this great information and introducing us and digging in more deeply to the Eat Local First Washington Food and Farm Finder. Such a great resource.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. I also want to tell you all that we have more Lunch and Learns coming up. Already scheduled are 2 for September. September 13th, we're going to do one on meat processing with Mike Poteet. And in September 27th, we're going to do one with Melissa Moeller on applying for value-added producer grants, VAPG grants. This is a topic that we did before last year. It was very helpful for people who are interested in applying for those grants, because Melissa's really an expert in how to do that successfully. And I think, Emily, you want to say a little bit about the Project Accelerator before we wrap it all up?
Yeah, so the WWFSP Food Systems Project Accelerator, which is a technical support fund. So if you apply, your project will receive free technical support from various agencies, including NABC on our steering committee. We work with a lot of conservation districts, other food access organizations. So that deadline for the pre-application is in 4 days, July 31st. The pre-application's very simple. It was intended to be simple so we could help people just kind of flesh out whether they think that they're that they think it's a good fit for them. So please apply. I will put, if you have a food systems project idea that you'd like to get off the ground, I will put the link in the chat, and I'll also, when I follow up with this, I will send out a link to the pre-application as well. So thank you so much. Putting the link in now.
Thank you, Emily. This is Johnny. Yeah, we're looking to either upcycle seafood processing infrastructure in Grays and Pacific County, and definitely interested in the accelerator. We're gonna apply.
Yay!
And then anything that can help us access grants, funding, capital to further our goals to build more small scale infrastructure for emerging and undervalued fisheries, so that we can get these proteins out to the people. So thanks a lot. Anybody else that can help us or steer us in any direction, excuse me. Thank you.
I have your email, Johnny, and I am going to be next to the food bank in Pacific today, and I was going to pop in and make one last plea to allow them, or to let me write them a WSTA resiliency grant for the farm to food bank. And so if I get in touch with them, I'll be in touch with you about that. And if not, please apply and we'll talk, because I'm in Pacific and I'm very passionate about like creating more food system infrastructure here, because we produce a lot of food, but it's really hard to get food in these rural areas that's good. So I'm excited that you were here today, and we'll be in touch.
Great. Thanks, Emily. Nice to meet you all.
Yeah, nice to meet you. Thank you for coming.
Glad you were here. And Maressa has let us know. You want to say this out loud, Maressa?
Sure. I just wanted to mention one of the things that people asked us for over and over again was that we would create a job board. And so we recently did add a job board to Eat Local First. We've heard from people in the past that they've used the Washington Food and Farm Finder to search for farms. And we've had reports that employers have hired people based on those searches. So for example, if people wanted to go work on an organic farm, they've used the tool to find organic farms that they might want to go and work on. And so we created this job board, would love for people to use it. It's free to post and obviously to use. It's really cool the ways that we've heard people using the information on the Washington Food and Farm Finder, both to like find people for networks, in addition to just finding food. So yeah, thanks for letting me share that.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much again. Thank you for those who participated today, and for the really very nice networking and information sharing happening on the chat, as well as Maressa's presentation. Thanks, everybody, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the next Lunch and Learn. Take care. Did you end the recording, Emily?